I'm a meteorologist, and I play one on TV too. For years, the job was all about the 7-day forecast. The job though, that role we play in people's lives, it's changing. We don't just forecast the weather anymore, we're explaining climate change in real time because weather is how we experience climate change. But you should know this shift in the industry hasn't always been smooth. That's why I wanted to reach out to somebody who does the same job as me south of the border. Okay, Ginger, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I know you've got a packed schedule.
This is what I love talking about. More weather, the better.
You have a meteorology degree, but you are also the chief climate change correspondent for ABC News. You have taken on the role of climate change communicator head on. Can you talk to me about how that shift in broadcast meteorologist has changed over the years from your perspective?
You know, if I go back in my career, I got into this because I loved storms and I was a storm chaser, and that's what I went to college for. I really didn't intend on getting into television or broadcasting. When I did, I watched the evolution of why I'm doing what I do evolve. We are the easiest voices because we can understand the science and then break it down just like we do atmospherically with climate data. So I think we're the best voices to be bringing this story to everyone. And I'm doing Hurricane Katrina, and that's my first big storm. And very quickly, 30 seconds in, I'm like, this isn't about science. Oh my gosh, it's about people. And then my next evolution is when I realized that I met Hurricane Michael, for example, where everybody I met along the way, it wasn't that they didn't think the storm was going to be as bad or whatever that I usually hear from people why they stayed. It was because they don't own a car, they don't speak English, and it became a privilege issue. And then I thought, oh my gosh, we have to work on the rescue before the rescue.
Social media has totally changed the game for us, Ginger. I mean, I think we were both going from a one-way forecast at the end of the evening news. It's a two-way conversation now. Climate change is a hot topic. What kind of response have you seen from your viewers on various platforms?
There's been a remarkable difference in people's understanding and comprehension of where we are in the world of climate change because they are being introduced, especially through natural disaster and extremes. I think that it gets a little muddied sometimes, and that's where we get ourselves in trouble. Is there's one side that will say, well, climate change caused that. Climate change doesn't cause anything. It amplifies things. And so I think, you know, just like every science, the words matter, and we have to tell people what we know and what we don't know. But in the 20 years I've done this, we've learned a lot. And the evidence for climate amplifying events has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And so for an audience that's been able to come along, I've seen a remarkable difference in the last 5 years of people's understanding, connection, and then the big next question, instead of saying like, oh, do you believe? I don't get people doing that as often. It's more, what do I do? How do I change something? Can we do it? And so that's what's exciting. I think that there's so much we can do. And that's where there is a lot of hope. I know it's like a very overused word, but you have to do it. You know, that's how you get through anything that makes you feel anxious. You take action.
Amplification and hope. Those are the two most important words, I think, when it comes to climate change communicating. I've seen you take on misinformation, though, head on. And I love that you said that your audiences have come along for the ride. That's so great to hear. I feel like our Canadian audiences, that the science literacy has also grown in the past 20 years. What's your perspective on taking on misinformation head on?
Social media gave us that ability to have that two-way conversation, like you said, and I enjoyed doing that because engaging with people is where you can actually have a say. If we're just like talking at them from one side, there's not a lot that you can learn, especially if you are not willing to, or if you can't ask a question. Like it's not like a classroom. Now it's more of a classroom. And I think taking on misinformation is something where if I get a tweet or a Facebook message or something that I know comes from a place of someone not just being a troll, but of not understanding, or maybe they've got a little agenda or whatever it is, but they're dead wrong. I will, and I've heard it lots of times before, I'll use that as a jumping off point to say, you know, I know a lot of you have probably asked this same question. So let's dive into the science. And that's a great way. So we've kind of gone the other way where social media is now feeding what I'm able to do in a streaming or broadcast world.
On the other hand, you've also spoken about the rise of the social meteorologist. I think that's a term you coined. These are people on social media who are hyping up storms way in advance to get the clicks. Why is it so important that scientists lead the front when it comes to science information?
It's so frustrating because our science has come so far. Meteorology, even in the time we've been doing it in just 2 decades, to see how good the science has gotten, how great the computer modeling is, and how great the people that are knowing the biases between the computer models have been at communicating it. It's imperfect. There's still plenty of ways and places that we need to get better about, emergency managers hearing from meteorologists at the right time and making sure everybody's got the right story. But it's gotten a lot better. So it makes me so sad that these social media meteorologists have come out of the woodwork. It's outright dangerous if it becomes you're warning about storm surge of 20 feet and somebody changes their life and changes everything about what they're doing and spends their last, savings on getting out. And then that wasn't even close to where the 20-foot storm surge was going to be. Or the opposite, they're not getting the right place, and the people who are in the 20-foot storm surge aren't getting the right information. That is when it's potentially life-threatening, and I get really angry. I just encourage people to hopefully figure out where their source is, who their source is. And I think that I don't want to take away from hobbyists who have been doing it for years and years, who know their local area well. There are many people who are experienced at forecasting that maybe didn't have every thermodynamics class that you and I had, that still have value. It's the way in which they're communicating that I would be really weary of.
Just wanted to ask you a last question. It's so nice to talk to really a colleague. We're fighting the same fight on opposite sides of the border here, and it's so nice to connect with you. You mentioned, not every meteorologist believes that this is the future of our role. Where do you see our role as meteorologists, but also climate change communicators heading in the future?
I think it's embedded in it. It can't not be part of it, because they are two things that work together. You don't have weather without climate. You don't have climate without weather. And so whether a meteorologist has had, I've been here 40 years and I've never talked about climate change, and I'm not going to. I like to remind them, well, yes, you have, because you've probably used an almanac, you've probably used the climate data, and your audience has been going right along the ride with you. Who doesn't want more information, right? More information that will help them to make decisions of what to do. And that's what the next thing is. And so the stories that we're able to tell and digest and then tell hopefully clearly to our audience, all have to do with climate.
Ginger, it's so nice to talk to you. I'm going to let you get back. I know you've got so many storms you're tracking, but I'll see you on the front lines. Yeah, thanks again.
See you then. Thank you.